Ready to unlock your true potential and manifest the life of your dreams? Then I've got something super special just for you. Our mind-blowing self-love and manifestation courses. Picture this: a journey of self-discovery where you'll find a deep well of self-love and acceptance. Say goodbye to self-doubt and hello to unshakable confidence. Our courses are designed to help you embrace your worthiness and tap into the incredible power of self-love. But that's not all. We'll also dive deep into the transformative world of manifestations. You'll learn proven tools and techniques and strategies to align your thoughts, beliefs, and actions with your wildest dreams. So get ready to create the success, happiness, love, and abundance that you deserve. So what are you waiting for? Head over to candywashington.com/courses to get started. Again, that's candywashington.com/courses. So welcome, Kristina. So for those of us who may not know more about you, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what really inspired you to write the book Becoming Flawesome?
Thank you for having me. Well, in a very short introduction, I'm an entrepreneur and an author and a writer. That's probably like the top titles that that I would throw out.
Mhm.
And Of course, what inspired me writing a book? It's non-fiction books. Obviously, we usually are inspired by our own experiences. Although I would imagine that authors of fiction also get inspired by their own experiences. I was inspired by my own journey, but it is a book which is more, I would say, philosophical and it's not about me for sure. The force that made me sit down and write was COVID and me staying at home for a long period of time and having a lot of free time at my hands.
Yes, definitely. And also, you spoke about your journey. So I think, like you said, with nonfiction, usually there's a crisis that happens in our life that inspires us to write, whether it's stepping away from Mindvalley, I believe, and then consciously uncoupling with your husband, and then also wanting to step into your own truth in your own power and really the honesty of who you are. So during the writing process of the book, was there something that you learned about yourself or a challenge that you faced that even surprised you that you took away from writing the book?
Well, writing the book was definitely an interesting experience, and I've learned my lessons. But then, being everyday life philosopher, another of the titles that I like to use on myself, I do learn from everything, including when my phone breaks.
Yeah.
There's a lesson in that. Everything carries a lesson. I don't think my life was that much scripted, as in before and after. Uh, it's uh, it's sometimes it's a very good scenario for a movie to take your character all the way to the bottom and then make the turn in the movie. Life is not quite scripted quite the same way. It's a little different. So my path to that book started way before our divorce. I'm not completely away from Mindvalley. I'm still co-founder and I'm part of the team. Although I did change my role in it quite greatly, but a lot of those things were not the reason for this journey or the reason for that book, but rather the consequences of my journey. Because I'm talking about being true to yourself and honest to yourself, and naturally part of that is changing things about your life. So it's not like my life changed dramatically and that led me to this journey of self-discovery. In fact, at the moment when I thought that something was wrong, I was actually considered an incredible inspiration. I had a business, a husband, children. I traveled the world, so everything. The facade was polished and very presentable, but I didn't feel happy.
Right.
So it's a very well. I think in psychology it's called midlife crisis. A lot of us go through that without realizing that this is an invitation to change something.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess what I was saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's more of not the crises that getting divorced or stepping away or changing your position is the crisis, but living the facade is the crisis. And
Mm.
so once you got clear on stepping into your more honest, a more authentic, honest life, then you were able to break away from that. And then, like you said, the consequence of stepping into your authenticity was, let me change what my role is. Let me reevaluate what my relationship is. So
Mhm.
for people who are listening and watching, what are some of those signs that you are living a facade and that you're not living your authentic truth that can then lead to you sort of dismantling that, and then from that place building, from that foundation of authenticity, building a truer life for yourself?
Yeah, it's a tough question to answer because you know the problem with delusion is that people who suffer from it are usually not aware.
Mm-hmm.
That's in the nature of delusion. So usually, if you start asking yourself, then most likely you're right. But and also not just that you're right. If you wonder or if you question yourself, then you are at an advantage because you already going somewhere there. It may be scary because it sometimes feels like you're standing on the door of on an open door of the plane and you're about to jump out with a parachute. It is scary, but you are at an advantage because you already see the delusion. A little bit like in Matrix.
Yeah.
Like, will you take the pill? But the real problem is that very often we don't realize that there is an illusion until well, maybe never, and in that case, maybe there's nothing to change. I mean, if people are happy in their illusions, then let them be happy in their illusions.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes we have the nagging feeling, but just don't have the courage to face the truth. So it's not like I wasn't authentic. We all feel ourselves to be quite authentic, or at least quite true to our values and what makes us us. But it was more the fear of facing the truth, to have the courage to admit that some things are not working, even though on the surface they look perfect. The red signs, the red flags
Yeah.
to pay attention to, in my experience, are the feelings which you think you're not supposed to feel.
Mm-hmm.
But here, you see, I have to also come with a condition. A lot of us are not aware of our emotions or our feelings, or we live in that soup. Or again, there's delusion which is so strong that it expands to how we feel. But if you judge yourself for how you feel or what you think, then usually that's an invitation to sit down and ask yourself, okay, what's going on with my life? And then maybe you will be face to face with your truth, and then you'll know.
No, absolutely. And I also want to ask you what your definition of authenticity is, because I love that you brought up, living in delusion. Because for me, years ago, I was like, oh, I'm going to be my authentic self. And I was like, that means nothing bothers me. Everything is cool. Nothing bothers me. I'm just a yes person. Everything's great. And then I was like, no, Candy, that's delusion. And that's not true. That's a fantasy. So I had to learn what authenticity truly was, which was honoring what my own objectives, agency, likes, wants, dislikes, shadow, light, every aspect of myself, and not judging it and accepting it and being like, this is who I am and that's okay. And actually, how I feel, my own well being is my best and first priority. And from that place, I can live an authentic life because this is truly who I am. And
Mhm.
so, some of the red flags and the signs of in creating that self awareness that you're not living an authentic life is sort of like living in that should space. Well, I have the husband, I should be happy. I have the job, I should be satisfied, right? But just like you said, you have that gnawing feeling that you're not, that
Mm.
still there's something missing, that there's still a part of you that's not fulfilled. And I think when I learned that authenticity really was just, this is who I am, all of who I am, and that's okay. And it's enough. And I'm no longer afraid to show that. So, how do you define what authenticity is?
Mm. For me, maybe I'm a little bit nerdy in my definition of
No,
authenticity.
you're fine. No, you're fine.
For me, the definition of authenticity is it's your relationship with yourself,
Mm,
and that's as far as it goes. I think that you live authentically if you have a good relationship with yourself. It's healthy. It's open, it's honest. And if your relationship with yourself is complicated, then it's a little hard to stay true to yourself. I don't really research authenticity very much because it's for me it's just a side effect.
Hmm.
What I care about is how are you in that relationship. So I would give an analogy, probably because analogies make things easier.
Yeah.
uh, in any kind of relationships, whether it's with your children, with your friends, or with your lover, um, for a relationship to thrive, you have to have certain conditions met. You have to have trust, some degree of honesty, I guess, also being present,
Hmm.
being committed. And very often that requires at least some level of awareness and effort. And I don't mean to say that it's hard work. What I'm saying is that you have to be conscious in that relationship, and you have to build it up for it to thrive. Uh, if you don't, if you're too busy, if you take it for granted, if you're never present, if you can't be bothered to hear, to listen, to be compassionate, then very likely a relationship is going to suffer. And it's exactly the same pattern in our relationship with ourselves. So for me, authenticity, or being authentic or living authentically, is a consequence of your healthy relationship with yourself. And for me, it's not, strictly speaking, a goal, but I think it's that thing that just happens once you are ready to commit and be present with yourself.
Yeah. For me, it's more like self love is the relationship to self. And then, like you said, a consequence of loving yourself, or one of those benefits, is that you naturally become more authentic. It's almost like a byproduct of self love is that you're able to live an authentic life because you have that relationship to self where not only do you know who you are, but you honor and respect who you are. Therefore, you show up as who you are
Mm.
because you have that foundation of love. So,
Self-love is
go ahead.
definitely self-love is definitely a relationship, but there are a lot of different forms of relationship. A lot of
Mhm.
people have self-hate,
Yeah.
or self, I don't know, self-nagging. There are
Mhm.
a lot of different forms of relationships with the self. So
Yeah.
self-love is definitely the topic that I'm very interested in, because I think that's the aspiration. But where that is not possible, then at least self-compassion would be
Mm.
a good substitute.
Yeah. Um, I have 5 soft life questions that I usually do at the end of interviews, but I think now would be a good time to ask them. Are you open to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
of course. It's
perfect.
your show. You're the
No, but I
master.
also like to, honor my guest as well.
Yeah.
So, the first question is, what is one thing that you would tell your younger self?
Oh, it's a very interesting situation. I wouldn't actually meddle with my younger self. Maybe I would be very tempted to warn myself off certain experiences and certain people, but I guess it would have probably done me a disservice. So no, I wouldn't meddle with my past self ever.
Ever. Got it. No, it's okay. And then number 2 is, what is your definition of God?
I am I am unclear on that. It's the one thing which is inexplicable logically. There are signs that you don't need to explain everything logically, but because I'm very logically inclined person, I'm still searching, and I have faith that by the time I'm ready to face that entity, I'll be a little bit more at peace with whatever my perception of that entity is. I also think that we very often perceive reality from our earthly body, which
Mhm.
actually gives limitations to a lot of things. I think if universe is as boundless as we know scientifically it is, there are definitely different shapes and forms of existence which open up our opportunities and possibilities. So maybe this shell of a me is never to truly grasp what it is to be God.
Mhm. And then how do you self-soothe?
Uh, I do not know if I have that kind of particular ritual. I just am very present with my well-being usually. So when life goes crazy, I do sometimes have to declare an emotional well-being day and just stay at home. But my favorite places to be is to be at home, to be with my book, to be with my children. So that would probably qualify as a self-soothing ritual.
Yeah. And what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh God, there are so many.
Yeah.
Well, definitely, I wrote the book to stay there to stay for I hope generations. So we'll see. I really hope it survives the test of times. But that's the outward legacy. I believe that my children are also partially my legacy, although I can't, of course, take responsibility for what they're going to grow up into. But I did create them, at least biologically speaking. And also have sorry, I have also ancestral land with a home where my family has lived for 400 years. So I'm building it into museums. So I believe that would count as legacy. The only thing I haven't done yet, I've written a book, I've raised children, I've built a house. I haven't planted a tree yet. So I'm holding this off just in case, just in case somebody up there decides you're done. So maybe I'll plant it much later.
That's good advice. And then our last soft life question is, who are you?
Uh, that was the first question of this interview.
Well, no, that was the first question was more of like, your background, but this one is more from your internal spiritual space. Who is Kristina, the
You know,
self, yourself?
I have a chapter in my book that's called "Who Are You?" So it's I guess I should eat my own dog food, but I would say that I'm a complex creature with many different aspects. And if I were to pick one thing that my favorite is I think forever will be everyday life philosopher, because I just like to see the world and dissect it in my head.
I love that. And I know that you said that you wouldn't go back and tell your younger self anything. You wouldn't meddle with that.
No.
But what is something that you would tell your children?
Oh, that's a different story. Because they still have their future ahead of them. I don't teach them. I'm just I think if there was one thing I would like them to learn is to trust themselves,
Mhm.
and that's a hard one. But
Yeah.
I do wish they grow up learning. They grow up knowing how to believe and trust themselves in their own judgment and their own uh, internal voice, because that's something which we contemporary humans lack massively.
Mm. Well, I think like we said in this interview, a lot of that is rooted in the relationship to self.
Mm.
That self-love relationship, and like you said, the consequences or the benefits of it, because when you do cultivate that relationship to self of acceptance and curiosity and questioning and awareness and authenticity, I think baked into that has to be trusting of self.
Well, in any relationships, trust probably is a key. A
Mhm.
key. So naturally, it's the same with yourself. But that's something which I'm witnessing is usually creating a lot of problems. The fact that we don't trust ourselves. So we don't trust our inner voice, our hunches,
Mhm.
our own logical conclusions, and in the extreme cases, we depend on other people's opinions. Uh,
Mhm.
and that is a messy life, and I don't think it's ever made anyone happy. There's a difference between depending on other people's opinions or input and just asking for help when you need it, objectively need it. So trusting yourself is not about being fiercely independent and doing everything yourself. It's just trusting your truth.
Mhm. And for people who are struggling with self-trust, do you have any guidance on something that they can do to start to learn how to trust themselves or open up to more their own intuition and knowing that at our core, our higher self, our inner voice always knows what's best for us.
Well, if we recognize it, and sometimes we don't know, maybe. Well, I think that trust is one thing that requires time to build. That's why it's trust, and when we break trust, it's so hard to restore it, because it's this thing that requires some level of perfection, I guess. Some level. Uh, I wouldn't actually, I'm a little puzzled as to what advice to give. I would probably start with just compassion for yourself as the first step, and then I guess trust will be something a little bit more complex to aspire later. A lot of people who don't trust themselves, they're also quite hard on themselves. So maybe a good
Yeah.
substitute for that would be just to learn to be kind to yourself and compassionate. And well, if you can't trust yourself, at least be there for yourself.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I think self-compassion and really cultivating, I like to call it a loving lifestyle, like in my mind, to talk to myself in a loving way. Just
Mm,
cultivate like a loving lifestyle of inner talk, of inner dialogue. Because like you said, that self-criticism, that harshness is what separate us from the love and the acceptance and the authenticity and the trust. And to hold space for self-compassion, holding yourself in a loving, graceful way, giving yourself grace to be human.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, very often criticism comes from the lack of trust. You
Mhm.
don't trust that you know the truth, so you have to give yourself hard love. I've heard that comment quite a lot, that self-criticisms are good for you because it's going to uh, make you want to change. That's from the lack of trust. I think it's very often not being hard on yourself or self-criticism, or being uh, mean to yourself that makes you want to change. It's just awareness, just noticing what's going on in your life. Very often we come up with forceful ways to change ourselves, but in reality, all you need is to just notice. And when you notice with curiosity rather than with judgment, uh, you will see enough to be motivated to change and to grow and to become better. So there is an aspect of trust in not criticizing yourself, in taking yourself with curiosity and kindness and compassion.
Hmm. Yeah, and when you said that, it made me also think of, that curiosity and compassion, and just to notice, just to observe yourself also leads to that part of accepting yourself of who you are. And when you sort of have that self-acceptance, that's also like when you can actually change, because you're no longer resisting or fighting or thinking something about you is wrong or broken or not enough. When you
Mhm.
get to that place of, this is okay, this is who I am, this is how it is, that's fine, then that's what really frees up the energy and the space to intentionally change in a loving and compassionate way. But as long as you are, criticizing yourself and talking down to yourself, and to me, I think that's really like self harm,
Mhm.
that's when you're actually blocking the ability to change.
Yeah, I agree. You need to accept yourself. It's like with navigation system, you
Mm,
can put your destination, but unless the navigation picks up your departure, it won't give you the route. So it's important for
exactly.
transformation. It's definitely important to be planted in the present reality as well, because uh, it doesn't happen in the abstract. It happens from point A to point B.
Exactly. Oh, well, thank you so much, Christina. I know that this is our time. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. And I'm excited to continue to read your book, Becoming Flawesome. And so for everyone listening, I have two more questions. One is, what is one thing you would leave us with, whether it's something we've touched upon or not? And then two is, where can we find you and connect with you as well?
So the one thing that I would like to leave you with is the quote by Cinderella's mom from 2005 movie, when these were her parting words. She said, "Have courage and be kind." And I think it's very appropriate to our conversation today. And it's very easy to find me. It's Kristina Mand everywhere on all social media, including my website is kristinamand.com. It's Kristina with a K, Krist. INAMAND. I always find spelling such a puzzling task, but it's Kristina Mand. Yeah.
Perfect. And I will also have everything linked down below in the description box in the show notes. So Kristina, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Candy, for having me. It was a pleasure.
You too.
Bye.
Bye. Ready to unlock your true potential and manifest the life of your dreams? Then I've got something super special just for you. Our mind-blowing self-love and manifestation courses. Picture this, a journey of self-discovery where you'll find a deep well of self-love and acceptance. Say goodbye to self-doubt and hello to unshakable confidence. Our courses are designed to help you embrace your worthiness and tap into the incredible power of self-love. But that's not all. We'll also dive deep into the transformative world of manifestations. You'll learn proven tools and techniques and strategies to align your thoughts, beliefs, and actions with your wildest dreams. So get ready to create the success, happiness, love, and abundance that you deserve. So what are you waiting for? Head over to candywashington.com/courses to get started. Again, that's candywashington.com/courses.